Hello guys, Flanker here. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into everything related to gathering skills in Ashes of Creation. There is synergy with other artisan skills, power leveling strategies, artisan gear, and pretty much everything else. This video is essentially the first part of a 3-part series, as I will publish similar videos about processing and crafting soon. So if you're planning to focus on artisan skills, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming guides. As usual, I would like to thank my Twitch subs and YouTube sponsors for their kind support. Even though mobs in Ashes of Creation sometimes drop gear, there is no guarantee that the particular item will suit the player or have the desired stats. Additionally, dropping an item of heroic tier or higher is extremely rare. Meanwhile, when it comes to crafting, we can select the exact item we need with the desired stats and tier. Since crafting requires resources, gathering becomes an essential part of this process. In addition to that, gathering resources is necessary for constructing new buildings in nodes, which contributes to their development. Also, each node has a separate commission board where you can take on gathering commissions and earn XP and glint as rewards. In this video, we will take a detailed look at each of the gathering skills individually. Prior to that, we will also cover some general details that apply to all of them. Every 10 levels of a gathering skill, a new certification level can be unlocked by speaking to the corresponding NPC. The amount of experience required to reach gathering levels is the same across all skills. The XP requirements for higher levels, shown on the right side of the table, might look intimidating at first, but with the right approach and strategy, it's not as difficult as it seems. Artisan gear and consumables can be used to increase stats related to a particular gathering skill. Quantity rating increases the chance to get additional resources while gathering. Rarity rating increases the chance to get rarer resources. Speed rating increases the speed of gathering the resources. And XP rating increases the amount of gathering experience gained. You can view these stats by pressing H and then opening your Artisan tab, where you will also find their descriptions. There are 5 gathering skills in Ashes of Creation and 5 different tools, one for each at this point. This will change in future with new updates related to gathering, and more various tools will be added. Players can obtain crude tools by completing the quest The Sweat of Your Brow and then craft novice tools with better stats. Starting from the apprentice level, players will be able to craft various tools for each gathering skill with different perk combinations. For example, there are 3 types of apprentice mining pickaxes, each requiring different recipes and resources, and providing different perks. Keep in mind that at this point you cannot purchase tools from other players, you must craft them yourselves at the corresponding crafting station. However, another player can trade or sell you the resources needed for crafting. If you intend to take gathering seriously, definitely consider crafting tools of higher rarity to have higher bonuses. Finally, don't forget that in order to gather higher tier resources, you will need tools of the same tier or higher. For example, Emerald requires an apprentice level mining skill and at least an apprentice mining pickaxe. Each gathering skill has its unique set of gear that consists of 3 parts: shirt, pants, and tool belt. At novice level, you can only equip shirt, at apprentice level you can equip shirt and pants, and at journeyman level you can equip all 3 items. For example, let's take a look at common journeyman level mining gear. In addition to gathering related perks, artisan gear also provides general perks, which is a nice bonus considering that artisan gear is equipped in separate slots. All those stats can be significantly increased if you craft and equip artisan gear of higher rarity. Just take a look at the insane stats of the legendary mining set. Just like tools and gear, there are bags for each gathering skill. These bags offer increased stack sizes for resources gathering using the corresponding skill, along with perks and unique layouts. For example, for mining, there are 5 different journeyman level bags. I'll show them with legendary tier stats to make it easier for you to notice the differences. 2 of them can be crafted by leather workers, 2 by tailors, and a basket can be crafted by carpenters. There are 3 types of consumables that may increase your gathering efficiency: scrolls, elixirs, and food. Scrolls provide a gathering XP buff that lasts for 3 hours and does not disappear upon death. There are 2 different types of scrolls, and once again, let's take mining for example. When tier 2 and 3 workstations appear in nodes, you can buy apprentice and journeyman scrolls of mining experience from the mining vendor. Alternatively, you can use scrolls of gathering experience. However, only novice tier scrolls can be purchased in the laboratory. Higher tier scrolls must be crafted by scribes. These scrolls are particularly useful if you are collecting resources across multiple gathering skills simultaneously, as the XP buff applies to all types of gathering. Additionally, these scrolls require fewer resources to craft, making it much easier to create scrolls of higher rarity and thereby speed up your skill progression. Finally, keep in mind that gathering XP scrolls do not have a certification level requirement. For example, you can purchase apprentice level scrolls from a vendor once a tier 2 station is built and use them even if you only have a novice gathering level. This means that if you begin progressing a specific gathering skill later rather than right after the server launch, you can potentially spend less time leveling overall. Now let's talk about elixirs. These can be crafted by alchemists in laboratories of tier 3 or higher. Similar to scrolls, they can provide buffs either to all types of gathering or to a specific gathering skill. The two elixirs with general buff can be somewhat annoying to craft as they require 5 different tier 3 resources. However, the recipes for specialized elixirs require only 3 ingredients, 2 of which can be purchased from a vendor, meaning you only need to gather 1 resource. This makes it relatively easy to craft elixirs of higher rarity, as the buffs they provide are quite significant. On my server, a tier 3 laboratory hasn't been built yet, so I'm not sure how long the elixir effects last. If you know it by any chance, please share that information in the comments. Food made by cooks provides a buff that increases the gathering rarity rating. Similar to elixirs, there is a weaker buff that applies to all types of gathering, and a specialized, more powerful buff that only affects a particular gathering skill. However, the latter comes with more complex recipes. Additionally, this type of food buff is dual purpose, as each kind of food also provides a combat-related buff. The effect lasts for 60 minutes but disappears upon death. Pylons are a part of this surveying system which is closely tied to gathering. Essentially, a pylon is an item placed on the ground that provides one or several buffs to the gatherer within a certain radius, thereby increasing gathering efficiency. Pylons come in various tiers, and with each new certification level, players gain access to pylons of the corresponding tier. For example, here are the mining survey pylons for novice, apprentice, and journeyman certification levels. As you can see, each new tier provides greater bonuses. Common pylons can be purchased from the corresponding vendor, while higher rarity pylons can be crafted at arcane engineering stations. For comparison, here are the stats for common and legendary mining survey pylons. However, crafting pylons of the highest rarities requires rare resources, so you'll need to weigh the cost effectiveness of such investments. At the moment, using pylons isn't really relevant, but this may change in the future, especially with the introduction of artisan skill trees in Alpha 2 Phase 2. Since some artisan skills, especially hunting, mining, and herbalism, often require a lot of traveling, your movement speed becomes a factor to consider. To maximize productivity, it's important to plan your gathering route carefully to avoid wasting time and minimize traveling distances. In any case, definitely consider acquiring the fastest mount you can get, even if you have to buy it. It's an investment that will definitely pay off and save you a lot of time. Next, if you're not set on a particular archetype but plan to spend a lot of time gathering, I would recommend picking a ranger. Rangers have a 10% movement speed buff that can be used on themselves and their mounts, as well as a 20% speed buff that lasts 8 seconds, which is often enough to move between the resource nodes. Finally, rangers also have disengage and airstrike skills that allow them to climb elevated terrain. Overall, while the archetype is not that critical for gathering, having a fast mount will definitely come in handy. Another gathering bonus you can take advantage of is a node buff. While traveling, keep an eye on your buff panel and check for buffs that appear when you enter the zone of influence of a node. Sometimes you may notice something like this. While it doesn't provide specific details or exact numbers regarding the bonus, this buff can definitely help, so make use of it whenever possible. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the amount of experience required to reach each subsequent certification level increases significantly, and this might seem intimidating. In reality, however, each new certification level also grants access to new tools, artisan gear, and consumables. All of these not only improve the efficiency of gathering, but also help to significantly speed up progression. By the way, if you've made it this far, why not leave a like and subscribe to the channel? And now, it's time to talk about each gathering skill individually. Lumberjacking is one of the easiest gathering skill to power level. The main reason for this is the ease of spotting trees. They are always visible from afar, and forested areas with high tree density can be easily identified on the map. Lumberjacking naturally synergizes with lumber milling and carpentry, as well as finds application in farming, metalworking, scribing, and other artisan skills. Additionally, wood serves as a great and easily accessible fuel required for processing. There are 6 types of trees that are currently available in-game. Ash, oak, eastern hemlock, and western larch are tier 1, weeping willow is tier 2, and braidwood is tier 3. Oak is the most common type of tree in the game and can be found practically everywhere. Some trees have static respawn locations, while others spawn randomly within a specific area. The interactive map on ashescodex.com does a great job of showing this and highlights locations with the highest tree density. Ash is the second most common type of tree, which is also quite easy to find. Western larch is a rarer type of tree. Small clusters of these trees can occasionally be found in various locations, but their highest concentration is along the mountains in the northern and northwestern parts of the map, near the border with the tropics biome. Eastern hemlock is the rarest of all tier 1 trees. These trees are mostly found in the same areas as western larch, along the mountain range in the northern part of the map. Smaller clusters can also be found in other locations. Both western larch and eastern hemlock share the characteristic that most of their trees are adolescent, not adult, meaning you will only gather 2 pieces of wood per tree. As for tier 2 weeping willow, you can generally find small clusters of 1 to 3 trees while traveling, but I haven't come across any areas with high concentrations. From my experience, there are several dozen trees located to the north of Lionhold, but such clusters are quite rare. On the bright side, weeping willow is very easy to spot from a distance due to its distinct leaf color and shape. Braidwood is similar to weeping willow. You might occasionally stumble upon small clusters with a few trees, but currently there are no areas with high concentrations because they mostly spawn randomly. Power leveling lumberjacking is quite easy. Step 1. Equip and use everything that provides a lumberjacking XP bonus. Step 2. Choose a spot with the highest density and amount of tier 1 trees. It's better to pick a location close to a node so you can either store the wood in your storage or sell it to a vendor. Alternatively, since tier 1 wood is relatively cheap, you can simply throw it away when your bags are full, keeping only wood of higher rarity. Mining is a bit more complicated than lumberjacking, but still not that difficult. Miners can gather various types of stones, ores, and gems. Mining synergizes with metalworking, stonemasonry, armor and weaponsmithing, and several other artisan skills. Novice miners can mine basalt, granite, zinc, copper, and rubies. Basalt and granite are easy to find, with the largest clusters clearly visible on the map. However, when it comes to other resources, especially copper, things are a bit more challenging. The only tool that can help locate these resources is heat maps, which show areas with a high concentration of mineable resources. Keep in mind that zinc and copper are particularly valuable as they are major bottlenecks for certain processing and crafting skills. We'll discuss this in more detail in the next 2 videos covering processing and crafting guides. In general, make it a habit to always collect zinc and copper whenever you come across them. At the very least, you can always sell them for a profit. Upon reaching apprentice level, miners can gather slate, tin, emeralds, and halcyon. Upon reaching journeyman level, miners can gather limestone, weirdstone, iron, lumadon, and sapphires. To power level mining, focus on the most common tier 1 resources, which are basalt and granite. Simply locate areas with the highest concentration of these resources on the map. Don't forget to equip gear with as many XP rating perks as possible and use consumables to maximize efficiency. Since basalt and granite are relatively cheap, you can discard them when your bags are full instead of running back to the nearest node, but be sure to keep any resources of higher rarity. In terms of difficulty, Herbalism is around the same level as mining. Those who choose this gathering skill will be able to gather various plants that are primarily used in weaving, tailoring, alchemy, cooking, and other artisan professions. Novices can gather daffodils, snowdrops, and flax. Daffodils and snowdrops are easy to find, and their large clusters make them ideal spots for power leveling Herbalism. Speaking of daffodils, here is an interesting fact about them. While gathering, you may notice they come in 2 colors, bright yellow, and pale yellow. While bright yellow daffodils are just ordinary herbs, collecting the pale yellow ones guarantees obtaining daffodils of at least uncommon rarity or higher. I tested this myself dozens of times and it ended up being true. A few other players have also confirmed this observation. Flax, on the other hand, is more difficult to locate. In most cases, you will only find one or a few plants rather than a large cluster. However, there is an alternative way to obtain flax by farming. You can buy flax seeds and water from a vendor and use droppings as the third ingredient. Since this is a novice level farming recipe, anyone can craft it at a farming station. Upon reaching apprentice level, players can gather moonbells and giant bluebells. Upon reaching journeyman level, players can gather grave lilies, blood-boiled spirit blooms, gloomy prose petals, and spindle vines. Hunting allows players to essentially hunt animals, which can later be trained through the animal husbandry profession to be used as mounts or beasts of burden for caravans. Animal parts can be utilized for cooking, tanning, or leatherworking. At the moment, hunting in Ashes of Creation is more of a placeholder. Nevertheless, it's still a necessary gathering skill, so we will analyze it in its current state. When hunting is implemented in its final iteration, I will make a new guide, but for now, we're going to work with what's available. Hunting progression is more challenging compared to other gathering skills for several reasons. First of all, the number of huntable animals is significantly lower than the resources available for other gathering skills. Secondly, hunting requires extensive traveling as animals are scattered across the map, forcing players to move from one cluster to another. Thirdly, while not many players may choose hunting, even a few competitors on your route can significantly slow down your progression. In general, we can divide all huntable animals into three categories. The first category includes animals with static respawn points, which, when gathered, provide a trainable animal. These can be trained to become either a mount or a beast of burden. For example, this category includes animals like horse or palace cat. The second category consists of animals with static respawn points, which, when gathered, randomly provide either a trainable animal or an animal's carcass. This category includes animals such as bears and wolves. The third category consists of animals with random respawn points, which only provide an animal's carcass when gathered. This category includes animals such as ravens, grams, and spiders. However, their respawn isn't entirely random. For instance, if you kill a raven, there is a chance that the raven that respawns may spawn as a huntable raven. This can be easily observed at a well-known goblin farming spot near the Urson Caves. Apart from goblins, the area also has several borgs. If these borgs are left unhunted for a while, eventually the spot will consist only of huntable borgs. Now, let me share several tips that will help you with hunting. Tip number 1. Use Ashes Codex map to find the locations of all huntable animals with static respawn points and create your own routes depending on your certification level. Tip number 2. Surprisingly, hunting progression up to level 10 is more exhausting compared to progression after level 10 due to the smaller number of huntable animals available. For instance, progressing from level 8 to 10 took me more time than progressing from level 10 to 12. If you plan to take hunting seriously, make it a habit to hunt all animals you encounter along the way. Tip number 3. Huntable animals stand still and do not move, unlike regular animals. The only exception is larva, an apprentice level hunting creature. Additionally, you can't select a huntable animal as a target. So for example, if you spot a flock of ravens in the distance, simply click through them to check if they are worth your attention. Tip number 4. Speaking of larva, as I just mentioned, it's the only huntable creature that doesn't stand still but constantly crawls around. To ensure the hunting process isn't interrupted, after pressing F, keep an eye on the larva and rotate your camera to always keep it in view. Tip number 5. Huntable bears differ from regular bears and have a slightly different fur color. If you find two bears of different types standing next to each other, you'll easily notice the difference. Fishing is the fifth and final gathering skill, which allows players to, surprise, catch different types of fish that can be used in cooking. There are two types of fishing in Ashes of Creation: freshwater and deep-sea fishing. Currently, the game only offers freshwater fishing, which is primarily an AFK or semi-AFK activity. From a recent interview with Steven Sharif and Pirate Software, we've learned more details about Intrepid Studios' plans for fishing.
Our goal with fishing is twofold. We kind of want to have one side of fishing be, location-based freshwater fishing that is a bit more AFK related, having the necessary bait, being able to kind of pick locations and resource nodes that exist around the world for different types of fish. And then we want to kind of have a more sports fishing, interactive gameplay layer that's a part of the fishing. And we might extend some of that gameplay layer to the freshwater fishing, but this is really something that's intended to be out in the open seas, out in the open water. These are massive fish that will relate to our crate system and how we move crates in caravans and in merchant ships. So we intend to have certain type of fishing ship designs that are better at finding those spots throughout the open seas, and where players will have limited resources to engage with those. They'll have like chum mechanics that they need to leverage. They'll have different types of components that can be equipped on the ship that benefit that type of fish finding. And my idea here is that we have a really compelling loop for what fishing is, and I know the econ team is very aligned with that perspective as well.
Currently, there are 4 types of fish in-game. Largemouth bass and bluegill can be caught by novice-level fishermen, salmon by apprentices, and lamprey by journeymen. All the players can fish while AFK. Don't forget about the AFK timer, which will disconnect your character from the game if no actions are taken for 30 minutes. Overall, fishing pairs perfectly with activities like watching movies or even remote work, allowing you to progress in the game with minimal effort. When it comes to power leveling, it's pretty straightforward. Try to use the best possible fishing pole, gear, and consumables, and also keep an eye for node buffs related to fishing. All of these combined can potentially save you hours of time. Additionally, as long as fishing doesn't require moving, consider using fishing survey pylons. They provide a rarity buff, and this affects the amount of experience you gain per hour. The higher the rarity of the fish, the more XP you gain for catching it. This applies to all gathering skills. I'd like to take this moment to remind you that I am continuing to recruit players for my group, and there are still several slots available in both main team and support team. A link to the video with all the details will appear in the top right corner of the screen, and you're welcome to ask any questions on Discord. I hope you learned something new after watching this video, and if you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I am Flanker, and I'll see you soon.